All right, gentlemen, what is good? Tonight, I want to make a video on. It's based off of an idea I had tonight. I have been not making videos because, like I said, I've been studying to pass the test, and this is a very big test. And once I do this, I'll be able to move into a new career. But basically, once I do that, then I'll start to make videos regularly. But what I've been doing during this whole interim period is coming up with ideas for videos, and this idea, amongst probably a couple dozen ideas that I've come up with recently, was something that struck me tonight. And it struck me because I had a conversation with a young man who was 19 years old, who grew up with a challenging life, and had his struggles in life, and he's been going through a series of problems. Um, and when I talked to him tonight, he was really upset because he had missed his girlfriend's uh, graduation, basically, high school graduation. He had missed his girlfriend's high school graduation, and he had felt like, there was a lot of things that were going on in his life where it was like, dude, I constantly give, 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 give. I got all this bad luck that happens to me, and, we've all been there. And he's always helping people out when it comes to making sure that those people get what they want, but then he's not good at trying to figure out how to get what he wants. And I've totally been there. And he said to himself tonight, or he said to me, he goes, I've got all this shit that's been going wrong with me in my life. He's been kicked out of his parents' house because of his stepmother. His dad doesn't know how to interact with him because he's got kids with another woman, and this woman has made him choose between him and her biological children, which is a whole nother video, by the way. One day I'll talk about stepmothers. I know my wife is a stepmother to my oldest son, and there's ways that you have to specifically know how to deal with that situation. And I think I have some knowledge I can share on that. And he just was so down. He goes, man, the one thing I had going on, the one good thing, which is his girlfriend he was talking about, I can't even be there to help celebrate. And I totally get what he was saying. And I think we've all been there. But for me, of course, being red pilled now for about a year and a half, I had to give him a little bit. I had to share with him. I said, listen, dude. I said, the one thing you got good going on for you is you. And the one thing that I've seen in you is you are resilient. And resiliency, and this is, let me pause with that story. And I said other things, but that's the gist of what I said. I said, what you got going on is you are resilient, and you've been through a lot of shit. And so the one thing you have going on good for you is your ability to pick yourself up. And that's why the name of this video is going to be called, If You Fall Down 6 Times, You Get Up 7. And I got that from actually an article I wrote years ago. Well, not an article, excuse me. A paper that I wrote for school. Actually, I wrote it for my ex-wife back in the day because she was lazy as fuck and didn't want to do any of her schoolwork and had me write a paper. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to write whatever I want. I wrote it on Dwayne Wade. It was based off of a Sports Illustrated article that to this day, for all of my life, there was a piece in that article. Dwayne Wade is actually one of my favorite basketball players of all time because he was kind of a scrappy player, and he was never really the best. He grew up in Chicago, went to Marquette, and just kind of worked his way through. Got drafted, I think, in 2003 by the Miami Heat. Ended up winning an NBA championship with, I think, what was it, Shaquille O'Neal? I forget what year that was. And then when LeBron James went on a team, they won championships together. And this guy was just real scrappy. He was not a finesse player. He would fall down all the time. And one of his mentors growing up told him, he says, listen, dude, you know what happens when you fall down? When you fall down 6 times, you get up 7. And that's kind of if you fall down 6 times, you get up 7. That's kind of the advice that I gave this young guy today, and that's the essence of what it means to be resilient. And why I share this is because this was something that I learned during my hardest times in life. This was when I got zeroed out, and I'll do a video on how I got zeroed out and how I recovered from being zeroed out. I've been zeroed out big time. I was zeroed out when I came to Pittsburgh, and I was in seminary. I learned all about, I had to, not only was I betrayed by my wife, but I was betrayed by the seminary. I was at seminary learning, that my ideological perspectives were wrong. My views on scripture were wrong. My views on my wife were wrong. I learned how, when I had my son, that basically the state can come and make you, and basically control when you do and don't see your son. I've shared my story on my channel. It's one of the first videos I did, but the seminary basically here in Pittsburgh, and it wasn't the whole entire seminary, is basically the dean and one radical feminist woman who had a lot of influence. They basically gave my wife at the time access to a lawyer through the women's shelter, and that created for me to lose a lot of my basically any little bit of life savings I had, because she had free representation and I had to pay for representation. And even though I had never physically touched her ever, they gave her legal representation to a women's shelter who was legally supposed to, or at least according to what the women's shelter said, represent women who were abused, and I never physically touched her, and they all knew that. And they even said, well, there's you might not have physically touched her, but you may have verbally abused her. It was like all types of weird shit. I mean, I got put through the ringer, and I was zeroed out. I mean, I was zeroed out, and I went through a shitload of things that took me a lot of work to get through and a lot of years to get through. And what had helped me was seeing a therapist that luckily he was old school, and he was a philosopher. And I've shared this in other videos, I'm quite certain. He was a philosopher. He was a therapist. He mocked the way that the direction that mental health was going. He didn't mock it, but he critiqued it. Excuse me. There's a difference between mocking and critiquing and being skeptical, rightfully so, and talked about the directions that it was going and the problems that it was going, and how it wasn't necessarily a good thing for the direction that mental health was going. And I know, working in mental health for the last 5 years, I'll tell you, it's not going in a good direction. But that's for a whole nother video. But this gentleman, it was a tremendous influence in my life, really influenced me. And how he did was one of the main things that I walked away with. And I met with him for almost 2 years, and there was a period of time where I was unemployed and had no health insurance, and he met with me for free. And he had a tremendous influence on my life. And at the time, he was an atheist, and I was at seminary, and the Christians were, who I don't believe are Christians, and I'll share that for another video. Actually, that's a great idea for a video. Where's my phone? Real quick. Yeah, I'll do it later. That's a good idea for a video. Talk about why I believe today the vast majority of Christian churches are not Christian. Because they're subservience to the gynocentric social order, and in the most disturbing ways. And I had an interesting conversation with my uncle recently when I was in North Carolina, and he was a part of. He's an older guy, but he is incredibly. He's a trad con, but he's able to kind of pick up on these things, and him and I are in conversation. Him and I and a cousin of mine, we've been in conversation for years now. And he started realizing, like, the church that he was been a part of, the Alliance Church, which is a old school conservative church, which focuses on missionary work, missiology, or missionary work across seas, has now radically changed their ways, and we won't get into that for another video. But so this gentleman, this psychologist, had basically helped me in a way where the point of me being with him, and the main takeaway was, even though we would speak philosophy and he would sit there and listen to me, and sometimes for free, I mean, it was incredible. You know, his services were worth $180 an hour, and he would give me sessions for free. The point was that he had told me that I was resilient. I was resilient, and I believed him. He said, "You're resilient, and you're going to be able to get through this. You're going to be able to walk through this." And he would take me step by step. He gave me practical tools to get off my ass. And even though I was so depressed after I had been zeroed out, after I had, basically realized that the state had control of me seeing my son, that the Christian church in the seminary, at least at that point, in that sector of the church, which I now realize is a lot of every sector, mostly the vast majority of Christian churches, are now loyal to the gynocentric social order. That, what else? That my family, even my relations with my family, they didn't believe the shit I was going through. They just thought I was complaining and crying after being broke and tired and being taken for my life savings, which wasn't much, but it was enough at the time where I thought, holy shit. He said, "You're resilient," and I believed him. I believed him at that point. And so let me get back to the story with the kid at the pizza shop. He basically, he was like, "Dude, I don't know what else to do." And I said, "Dude, your greatest asset is you, and that you are resilient." And so this was me kind of paying it forward. And this was me kind of giving that, like, a little bit of old school knowledge, right? It's like, dude, if you fall down 6 times, you got to get up 7. You got to. Otherwise, what's your option? What, are you just going to quit? And I think a lot of guys do. And I think this is a big message that us guys got to share with each other, is you got to get up. And I've given videos about, I made a video about how nobody cares. And it's true. Nobody does. There's a select few men out there who do care. And they're out there, and you can find them. That's one of the things I've been grateful for finding. The Rollo Tomasi guys and the Richard Cooper guys, you can tell these guys genuinely cared. I don't know where they're at now, but they started off genuinely caring. Rollo Tomasi doesn't write 1,000 essays, 4 books, does these YouTube things. I know he's blowing up now, and I don't think he'll ever allow himself to become mainstream. And that's going to be the test of time with Rollo Tomasi, is, are you going to try to be do what Rouge did? And I don't think he'll ever allow himself to do that. And now I'm talking things that you may not know. This is kind of within the red pill community. And to this day, I've never in my real life ever met another man who was red pilled in my real life. I've only seen these guys on the internet. And at some point I want to get to some of these conferences and talk to these guys. I'd imagine, based off of even what I've seen on the people that watch their channels, most of the people on their channels don't even truly understand the red pill shit. Like, these guys, it's the people who truly get it are very limited, very, very limited. And so I look forward to meeting and actually having conversations one day with people who are truly red pilled, because I've yet to experience that. All right, so that was the point of my conversation today with this kid, was like, dude, you are your greatest asset. And I was kind of pointing towards mental port of origin, that comes straight out of the rational male, being your own mental point of origin, and what it takes. And this is going to be my last point in this video. I'm up to almost 15 minutes. What does it take to come back from being zeroed out? Well, it's ultimately resilience, right? And where does that come from? I don't know. I really don't know. Does it come from a therapist? My therapist said I had it in me. I don't know. Does it come from, luck? Are you born with it? Is your brain born with the capacity to deal with that? I don't know. I will tell you, my fucking brain was so fucking stupid that I allowed myself to experience so much bullshit. I didn't have the ability to prevent myself from experiencing these things. But maybe that's how I had to learn. And that's definitely how I had to learn, right? What does it take to recover from being zeroed out? It takes, for me, another big part was, for me, it was also my faith. My faith has changed and adapted over the years. I wouldn't call myself a Christian in the sense of what a Christian means today. I would say most Christians today are, unfortunately, agents of the gynocentric social order. They prioritize emotion. They see the lens of Christianity through the society. They don't see it through a proper hermeneutic, through the scripture, through an exegetical. Everything's eisegetical, and that's for another topic. But the difference, real quick, an exegetical interpretation of scripture is you look into the scripture and you pull out of the scripture. You allow the scripture to speak to you, where an eisegetical interpretation is you take your perspective and you put it into the scripture, which is, if you think about it, the difference between an eisegetical, which is you taking your perspective and putting it into the scripture and interpret it from there, where the exegetical is you're trying to understand the text in its original context, is exegetical is rational. It's pure reason. It's unbiased. It's trying to understand it in its purest form, which takes forever because you may never come across an answer. And the answers that you come across, you may not like. You may not like the fact that Paul didn't write, half of what is accredited to him in the New Testament. You might not like that Moses may have never existed. And this might be news to you. You might not like that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John didn't actually write Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You might not like that. But you have to understand it in its purest form, in its truest form, so that you can understand what these writers are trying to say, right? Where an eisegetical work would say, well, I need for Paul to have written everything because that's what I was told, because that's an emotional interpretation. That's a shit poor example. Where an eisegetical is being raised, right, in a social order today, in a world that prioritizes emotion. And so now when you go to church, you have to feel emotion as opposed to wanting to dig into scripture, right, and actually understand it for what it really means in its context, which is far more complex. I think that's why men hate the church today. That's why men leave the church today, because it's so fucking emotional. It's like, what are they worried about at church today? And even the pastors, even the male pastors today. I mean, what are they doing? And when they talk like they don't even they talk with like this, yes, yeah. They always have this like tone of voice that's just like insufferable, and it's like they're so scared to say anything because they don't want to piss people off in a church. I mean, how many churches nowadays are still, I don't even want to get into it. But my point is, what does it take to recover from being zeroed out? Is it takes a level of resiliency, okay? It takes a level of resiliency. It takes a level of wanting to understand the truth in the matter. And I'll end with this. You have to want to understand the truth. You do. Because the truth is so deep and so profound and can never be grasped. And that's the point of my channel is Aletheia, the daughter of Zeus. You could simp for her all you want. Aletheia stands for truth. You're going to have to kill Zeus. You're going to have to kill the alpha of alphas to figure out how to obtain it. And that is enough to keep you entertained. That is enough to keep you entertained and to keep you pursuing for a lifetime. Okay? And if you keep pursuing that, you're going to it'll keep you going past the hard times. Okay? If you're in hell, if you're in hell, keep going, right? It'll keep you going because at some point it's going to take you through the valleys and all this shit, the ups and downs. You'll get through it, and you might come back into it, and you might get through it. But realistically, that's what resiliency is you learn, and when you get your ass kicked, you fall down 6,000 times, you get up 6,001. That's where growth happens. That's where growth happens. Okay? I'll leave you with that. If you do watch this video, I'm 22 minutes in or 21 minutes in, I'm saying, hey, man, hit the like button. I got a lot of work to do with these fucking videos. I'm supposed to say that at the beginning of the video, and this is why I got no one watching it yet. But maybe one day, people will actually be on my channel, and they'll go back and they'll watch these videos and go, wow, you really did suck, dude. How'd you learn how to actually get good? So we'll get there. Anyway, that's that. Resiliency is the key to being a man in today's world, man. It really is. It is essential because the world is not for you right now, at least not Western civilization. It's not for you, okay? And they don't give a shit about you. And they're going to want to knock you down. And when you get up, they're not going to celebrate it. They're just not going to celebrate it, okay? And I could tell you this even from recent experience. I'm not going to share it actually because it's too close to home for me. Yeah, I will share it. No, I'm not going to share it. It's too close to home for me right now. So maybe I'll get into that. Remind me to tell you about why it's too close to home for me, and it has something to do with my gym. So if you ever do, I'll buy you dinner because you're the only person ever watched this far into this video. All right? Peace.